Our first video was to do a full colony health inspection, which we did last week. Today's the first decent day during the coronavirus epidemic, so we can get on with the shook swarm. And this video, this short video, is about preparing for that shook swarm. So the first stage in preparation is to dig a pit, a fire pit, and I've dug this pit here, which is 1 metre square by 600 mil deep. That's 3 foot square by 2 foot deep in old money, and we're going to burn the old combs in here. So we'll take the opportunity to get rid of some of our old kit as well. This crown board's seen better days, old combs and frames, and that's useful for starting the fire off. But we're not going to have a fire today because it will bother the neighbours. But let me explain why we have a pit. We have a pit because when you burn the old combs, and you'll have seen on that video of the health inspection, a lot of the combs have honey on them, and the honey will melt out. If we don't have a pit, that honey will spread out on the flat ground. It won't get hot enough to destroy pathogens. Mice and rats will come and get it. Bees will rob it and take disease back to their hives. So we put it in the pit, burn everything, and then we fill the pit up, and that's nice and safe. So that's the reason for having a pit. So dig one if you haven't already dug one. Part of our preparation for a shook swarm is having all our kit ready, and I've already sterilised all the kit, and I'm going to go through it with you to show you what I've got ready. What we've used for sterilising it is a blowtorch, which is very good for woodwork, not so good with plastic components such as a perspex crown board or plastic queen excluder. These, I will show you again later, have been immersed in a bleach solution for a minimum of 20 minutes. A lot of people talk about you need to put a queen excluder underneath the brood box, and a lot of people talk about using a wired queen excluder. So let's start from the beginning. We've got a nice clean stand, we've got a floor, and then we want a queen excluder to prevent the queen escaping and the shook swarm absconding. Now if we put an ordinary slotted queen excluder there, and put the brood box on top, you can see there's a big gap there where the queen can get out, which is why many people say the only way around that is to use a wired and framed queen excluder which stays rigid. Of course there is another way. You use your entrance block. So if you've only got slotted queen excluder, use your entrance block. And when you put the brood box on there, there's no gap for the queen to escape. So that works just as well. If there is a tendency for that to sag, just put a little block of wood, a twig will do. Here's one. And that will prevent that from sagging. So we have a clean stand, a clean floor, queen excluder, brood box. we're making these ready assembled frames available to our members at half cost price. So this is how they come, already packed in tins, bubble wrapped, and we've got nice ready assembled frames in a clean brood box. So obviously we'd fill that up. The next thing that would go above that is a crown board, and then we need to feed them. Now there are various choices of feeders. Most of you should be familiar with a contact feeder. Contact feeder has got a wire gauze. Two things you've got to be careful with a contact feeder. Make sure the lid's on properly. If the lid's not on properly, that's what happens. But even with the lid on properly, when you first invert this, syrup will come out. This is only water for demonstration. Syrup will come out and then atmospheric pressure will keep it in. So you can use that over the feeder hole. With that type of feeder, you'll need to have a super as an eek, and that needs to be fed to the bees until they've drawn out the comb and the queen has started laying. For this particular exercise, you're better off with a rapid feeder. And the rapid feeder, that's an example here, has a chimney that the bees come up. Then they'll go into the syrup. The cup stops them from drowning, and that'll go above the feeder hole. And you can see you need to make sure that feeder hole lines up with the chimney in the feeder. My preferred feeder is again a rapid feeder, but much bigger than that one. This will take 5 litres or a gallon in old money. Works in exactly the same way. That fits there, and with that particular one you don't need a super or a brood box. You can use a 75mm eek, and again you fill that up with syrup and leave it on until they've drawn the comb out. So the roof will go on that, and job done. What I will actually do myself is I've got the supers ready, clean supers. I'm not going to give them the super comb, the super frames, until they've filled out the brood box, but I'll keep the clean super on there above the feeder so that it's ready and I know it's there. One other thing you need to be aware of is, obviously with a shook swarm, you're taking out the dirty combs and they need to go somewhere. So let's pretend that's a dirty comb. Prepare some kind of flat base that's bee proof. So I've actually used a crown board and then a Varroa board on top of that to cover up the feeder holes. An empty brood box, and then I drop the can you see that? I drop the dirty combs into that, seal it up, and then that can't get robbed. So that's there safe, bee proof until I'm ready to burn those combs.